Alrighty. Good morning, guys. Welcome to Building Connections Doral Talks. Today we have a special guest, Angela Banegas. She's not a stranger to the show. She is my good friend and a title officer right here in the state of Florida. And today we're going to be covering homestead tax exemption, especially because the end of the year is approaching and we need to get our taxes in order. And what a better time to talk about taxes. Good morning, Angela.
Good morning. How are you?
Oh my God, I'm so glad to have you back. It's been it seems like forever.
It does.
We've been busy. No, this is such a great subject, Angela, because a lot of people are owners, but I don't believe a lot of people know the advantages of actually filing the homestead exception. I don't even believe there's a lot of people that even know what that is. So today I want you to please, because you haven't been in the show for a long time, to tell us a little bit about you, where you do business. I know you could help anybody here in the state of Florida, but especially where you actually work. And then tell us, you can start off by telling us what homestead exception at the core basis is.
Well, first, again, my name is Angela Banegas. I am an escrow officer, which most people don't know what that means. I investigate the titles of homes so that when a buyer purchases a home, they purchase a dream and not a debt. I make sure that it is free and clear, and I issue a title policy from the date of purchase backwards. So I always say any damage done that you do moving forward is your own, but I take care of from today backwards. So that's how I do my closings. So I do know the ins and outs of what will and will not protect an owner. Most owners eventually become sellers, and those are a new pair of boots to put on, and you've been sitting in your owner's boots for a while. So if you really don't know what size you are, you could get the wrong size and your feet could hurt. I actually, our company, I work for Partners Land Services. We are moving offices in Doral, so we will be very close to the show. Very excited. And I do really love talking about Florida Homestead because people move from other states to Florida because sometimes of their age, they're older, they have assets to protect, or simply because they have so many assets and they've done their homework. Florida has the absolute strongest asset protection tool, and that is the homestead exemption. So I'll explain a little further. One thing that you have to do, obviously, in order to qualify for homestead is be an owner, and you have to own a home and live in Florida for at least half of the year. There are specific guidelines, and this has to be your primary residence. I know of lots of sellers who have homes in all the other states, a lot of New Yorkers, a lot of California, but they make Florida their primary residence, and they can only have one primary residence. And the reason why is because our asset protection is written into the Constitution of Florida. There are no statutory laws that can change this. When you live in Florida and you file primary homestead exemption, that means that your home is protected. You cannot have your home taken away in bankruptcy. You cannot have your credit card companies place the liens and judgments and foreclose on your home. Your primary homestead, hence the homestead exemption, protects people's assets that are unlimited. You can own a $5 million homestead purchase, and you can own a $60,000 homestead condo, and you are protected 100%. Now, there's a caveat, there's a little asterisk, and this is where people who are possibly investors at one point and transfer the use of an investment property into a homestead property or anything of that nature, when you apply for homestead, if you are married, the point of homestead is to protect your home. The point of homestead is to protect your family. It's to protect your homestead, your place of where you rest. So if you are married and you did not have your spouse's name on that property, by claiming homestead, you automatically give your spouse an interest in the property. So while it is extremely protective, it is all protective. Homestead was actually enacted to protect women, wives, spouses, moms who were stay at home while the husbands were out being the breadwinners, and the husbands were making all the decisions. The wife would come home from the grocery store, the house would be sold. What's going on? So Homestead was put into place to protect the family unit and all that family unit encompasses. And it allows you to grow in wealth and in material items. And again, the absolute best asset protection. People come to Florida for this specifically.
Wow, that's such a great point. I didn't know where it began, why it began. And it makes sense because in a marriage, whatever you do together, either it doesn't matter if it's a spouse that work or don't work. The reason that the marriage works is because your guys are together, right? So one can work in a specific way while the other one take care of the family, the kids, the house. And it's not fair if one person no longer want to be part of that family and they build this house, this family together, the one that after 15 years, they decide, you know what, I no longer want to be with you. By the way, that's my house because you didn't pay for it. And now you are homeless, basically, and have no money, not anything. And yeah. I could see, nowadays, obviously more females work.
That was the 1950s style. And this was put in place when the rug was pulled out from underneath them.
No, that's awesome. So, but Angela, I know that this is so, second nature to you and you speak it so freely and you understand it. But I have a feeling that most people listening to this might or might not understand. So you mentioned about asset protection, and you also talk about statutory laws in the state of Florida. Could you elaborate and actually, break it down to the 5th grade level for myself as well?
Thank you so much.
What that means.
So much to talk about. And it does go to so many branches that it's difficult to put it all together. You could talk about it forever. So other states have different statutory laws that are similar to Homestead and that protect to an extent. But the Homestead law was written into the Florida Constitution, which means that it would take an act of to get that changed. There are no county, civil laws, statutory laws. There's nothing that can be passed to trump the protection of the homestead exemption.
Wow, that is deep. And then, but you said that protect your assets. So let me back up. First of all, a lot of people right now were not aware of that. I was not aware that it has that much protection until now that I'm speaking to you. And obviously prior conversations that we had in the past, I know homestead exception mainly because it is a tax savings for most families. Can we talk about that since we are approaching to the taxes?
The funny thing is that's the one thing I didn't talk about was the tax savings.
Right.
And most people know you file for homestead, and there are a number of exemptions that you can apply for, from an elderly exemption for a population of people who don't have as much income, for it being a homestead, for veterans, military personnel get additional exemptions. So the overall value of your property is what your taxes are based on. The homestead exemption gives you a $25,000 discount on that overall value. And there's a second homestead that applies for the schools in the areas, kind of like a county sort of homestead. And that gives you an additional $25,000. So if you have a home that's $500,000 and you're being taxed for $500,000 on that property value, you're going to have a $50,000 discount on that. So it'd be taxed on $450,000. For example, my father was actually a 100% disabled veteran, and he did not pay taxes because that as 100% qualified him for that. And I'll tell you that when I started learning about real estate and title, I looked up my own parents' house and I was so thoroughly confused. And that's how I learned about exemptions very early on.
Gotcha. That is so exciting and so interesting. And I don't know if you know this about me, Angela, but I'm also 100% disabled, and I don't pay my ad valorem taxes. I'm 100% or zero tax paying. I mean, the homestead does not exempt you from non-ad valorem, but for the ad valorem one, I'm 100%. I don't have to worry about that.
For your service as well.
Thank you. Thank you for your support. Now, you touched a little bit on this, but I don't want to breeze over that because I know this is going to be interesting for many people that might be in this situation. But you said that once you actually have your property and you claim homestead, I know of some people that have a lot of bills, like thousands and thousands of bills. And they might as well qualify for bankruptcy because there's no other way that they'll be able to pay that debt. But they might be on the verge of not paying it or going through file for bankruptcy because they believe they will lose their property. You mentioned something interesting that if you were to file bankruptcy, it protects against creditors' claim. Could you just elaborate a little bit about that? What do you mean by that?
I am. And, I'm also going to bring another part into that because it's a perfect little swing segment there. It's very important that people understand that filing a homestead is an absolutely amazing tool. But the people who are going to get the most out of it or who try to get the most out of it may sometimes misuse it and it may backfire on them. And I explain it in this scenario. For somebody who's married and has their primary home and 3 investment properties, their investment property may actually end up being worth more than their homestead. They may decide to transfer that homestead to their investment property and move in there. But just like we were saying, husbands and wives, it could be that their husband and wife and their primary property, the husband has 3 investment properties. Those 3 investment properties are in only the husband's name. They do not include the wife. But now the husband's business is being affected and they decide to move into the most valuable property. So they move into the most valuable property and they claim homestead on it because they want to protect it. Why wouldn't they want to protect their most valuable property? But Mr. doesn't know that by putting homestead on that property, that investment property has now become their homestead, and his wife now has interest in that property as well as the property that was their previous homestead. So if he owned 1 homestead and 3 investments and he transferred that homestead over there, he just gave his wife one of his investment properties. So I want to point that out because it can sometimes shoot you in the foot if you don't realize the joinder of the spouse simply by even claiming it 1 year. We have people who've owned homes for 13 years, but my wife's name was never on it. Yeah, but back in 2006, you put homestead on it. So now as a result of that, your wife has to be joined in the sale of the property. Now, having explained that, Mr. and Mrs. go about their days different ways. Mr. may stop off and have a steak dinner and charge it to his account. Mrs. may stop at Macy's and do a little shopping for herself and the kids. As long as homestead is placed on that property, if Mrs. shopping gets a little excessive or Mr. covers one too many checks for the boys at night, if the credit card company comes and goes after either one of them, even separately, their homestead will be protected. They can file anything that they want, but they cannot foreclose. Doesn't mean that they get to get away with the debt. When they sell, they'll have to address those items. But that credit card company, that loan company, that auto company can't come and kick you out of your home for it if it's your homestead. And if you declare bankruptcy, they basically put what's called a stay on the property, meaning that it is stayed, it is protected and remains. And I don't want to get too much into the legal end of it because, of course, I'm a title officer and not an attorney, and that's my disclaimer, but the protection is overwhelming. And I really do, I did not understand early in my career why people would move from other states to live in Florida, and I do now.
Right. No, that is great. A great point. And just so that to see if I understood it correctly. So let's say then Joe would want to go ahead and say, you know what? There's no way I'm going to pay that $300,000 debt because I did a bad investment. It's overwhelming. We can barely eat. We can barely pay our mortgage. I'm going to go ahead and put file for bankruptcy. Then the bankruptcy court is not going to come to Joe and say, Joe, you're going to have to sell your house so that you can pay the debt. That's what you're saying. They're not going to make them sell in order for them to pay the debt. However, any other asset, they could. Any other asset except the home. So it's not that they're not going to try to collect their money, but what we're saying is that this homestead protection protect that they're not going to make you get rid of your property so that you can get the equity that you have built over years and pay for this.
And your child has a place to sleep. Your wife has a place to come home and cook so that you can continue to be a productive human being, to go to work off the remainder of the debt. Being homeless is not going to help anybody's situation.
Gotcha. No, that's great. Thank you for clarifying that, because that was something that somebody asked me. Actually, I was speaking to a friend of mine and they were saying, it was two friends of ours. And one person was saying, wow, they have a lot of debt. And I was like, maybe the best way is that they should file for bankruptcy, because otherwise it could jeopardize the marriage. It could jeopardize relationships because it's just so much stress. And I was like, maybe one of the reasons why they do not is because of the property that they do have, and they have a small kid, they have a family. And this will be great because now I'm going to be able to advise them. Thank you so much. No, yes, because I mean, it's like they could lose everything, even their marriage.
Absolutely. I mean, marriage is stressful. Add to that money. I mean, and the prospect of losing everything that you worked for, this really does give you, some kind of confidence in your core that, when you unlock that door, what you worked so hard for to get there is going to remain yours. That nothing is free and nothing is easy, but we protect our own in Florida. And I can say that with a little more confidence, understanding how much protection for homestead that, we receive.
No, and I really want to thank you, Angela, because obviously when we spoke about what we wanted to talk about, you said, let's talk about homestead. And I know about homestead. I know a lot about homestead exceptions. Like I said, I filed myself and I've done several videos about it, but I didn't know that extent of protection. I knew about the tax savings, but I didn't know about the protection that I'm aware of. And I'm going to do a little bit more research about it because it is really interesting. And I will make sure that I have steps in place that when people do purchase from me, that I make sure I send them that reminder around January. Hey, make sure that you file for your homestead exception, because you have to do that by January 1st if you're owner by January 1st. Obviously, no, by March
1st.
March 1st. By March 1st, but you have to be an owner before January 1st or by January 1st. Yeah.
And, I want to tell you that I enjoy being able to talk about it in this aspect because in my position, I'm usually the one going through the history, having to explain this to somebody after telling them that their spouse has to join. And I'm coming out of left fields and I'm explaining it in a scenario and in a manner that's not as welcoming as it is now, because usually I'm springing news on somebody, something that of course they didn't understand and didn't know. And so this is a better platform.
No, you have to explain it like after the fact.
Yeah.
Right now in this platform, you have an opportunity to say before the fact, like you need to be aware of this. Now, also, not only does homestead save you on some potential, assessment in your property, but also for future tax increases. Can we talk about a little bit about that? Especially since 2020, we had the value of our property shoot like really fast.
And that homestead protection applies in the same manner that it does to your homestead and to investments, because when you have your homestead, I believe it's a 3% cap. So your assessed value obviously can increase and will increase. However, the taxes will not increase in such a way that you would be taxed out of your home. It increases in 3% gaps. Now, maximum. Now, when it comes to investment, I don't know what the maximum is, but I wanted to say it was 12%. It may be a little less, maybe, but don't quote me on that. But it's certainly not covered as an investment property. So yeah, the homestead keeps your taxes at a minimum level where you can slowly be able to increase the responsibility of the payment for it. Your escrows and everything goes up, of course.
Right. So again, let me back it up again, because you have all of these terms. So for example, for those of you that needed to have it break it down like this, like myself. So if you bought a property for 300,000, like it happens since 2020, and your property went up in value 10%, 50%, 20% year over year, which happened 2021, 2022, 2023.
Thankfully.
Yeah, it was crazy. So instead of you having to pay an increase of value of 10% or 15% of the overall of your property, you're paying no more than the cap, which could be 3%. We need to check if it's 3 or 3.5, but not 10. Definitely,
no.
It's in the threes. So that's a great savings. And I know to keep you long, because I know you have a lot of closing to do. I have one more, and then it's the transfer of the homestead exception benefit. I myself need clarification on this. Could you elaborate, if you do know what that means, on how it works?
So I actually do not understand or have not used the transfer yet. I understand the concept and meaning of it, of course, in the same way that you are increasing the value of your property and you're covering it with your homestead. Florida allows you to take part of that value and to transfer it over. I don't know enough about that yet. I've been a home buyer and not a home seller. And so I learn, like a lot of people, the same way. And I've not had to transfer my taxes yet. But that is yet another benefit that Florida allows. Sometimes the benefit will actually, the amount of value will assist in the discount that the new owners will receive on their new property as a result of having homestead on their prior property.
Yeah, this is awesome. Like I said, I'm not that familiar with it as well. So neither are you. And you have been doing this for a lot of years. So yeah. This is a perfect segue for anybody, any of the listeners. If you have gone through this process yourself, please comment below and let us know if you did and what happened. Your experience, and maybe you can come in as a guest and tell us, and we can talk about it here on the show, so other people can get educated on the process and what this actually means. Right, exactly. Well, Angela, do you have anything else that you would like to add that we didn't already cover? I mean, I know we can cover many, many, many more things, but there's anything that today you would like to add to the homestead tax exception and, the end of the year or the beginning of the year, what people need to be looking out for?
Well, this is definitely one of those things that we could talk about all day, because even touching on the topic, it's just still so little of all of the information. But I just do want to tell everybody and make sure everybody's aware. Florida taxes are very different. We pay taxes in arrears. And what that means is, as of right now for 2024, we do not have a tax bill available to pay. November 1st, we receive our tax bill for all of this year. So just be sure that everybody is aware. You can't say that you've paid your taxes for this year yet. Nobody has. So when we start to get our bills November 1st, that's when the taxes for 2024 are due. Florida lets us live here all year long and then bills us.
Gotcha. And then you find out the next year if the increase of that potential increase in taxes on your property. So guys, you heard it here in Building Connections Doral Talks with Angela Banegas about property taxes and the homestead exception and the benefits that if you do decide to purchase right here in the state of Florida, that you as a homeowner will have. Not only protects you in a marriage, it also protects you for tax increases. It protects you for either creditors. It protects you from many things. Thank you, Angela, for bringing all of your worth of knowledge of many, many years to these 30 minutes. I really, really enjoy when you come over. Please don't take so long to come back to keep us informed.
Thank you. I love coming back and talking. I will have to take a smaller subject to take a bite out of, or if anybody has questions, I'd love to answer them.
Thank you, Angela. And again, where could people find you?
I am at Partners Land Services, and we are moving to Doral, Florida. We're currently on Brickell Avenue. If you need to reach me, my email address is abanegas@Partners Land Services. So A, B like boy, ANEGAS.
Excellent. Thank you, Angela. Again, thank you for coming. Guys, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for coming today and getting a wealth of information. Have a good day and have a great weekend, and see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Real quick, calling all Doral professionals, entrepreneurs, and community influencers. Are you ready to showcase your business, share your knowledge and experience with our engaged audience? Building Connections Doral Talks invites you to become a guest speaker on our podcast. Share your unique perspectives and inspiring stories with our listeners. We believe in the power of your voice in shaping the conversations right here in Doral. Click the link below to submit your information and be part of our next episode. Join us in building connections, sharing knowledge, and growing together. Don't miss this opportunity to be a featured guest on Building Connections Doral Talks. Tune in, connect, share, and grow together with Building Connections Doral Talks, reshaping the way we engage with the diverse voices of Doral, one guest at a time. Doral Talks, your voice, our community. Click the link now on the show notes, the screen, or in the comments below, or just scan the QR code to submit your information as a guest. I hope to see you soon. See you in the next podcast. Bye.